Sally Struthers, the bright-eyed actress who became America's beloved Gloria Stivic, seemed destined for a life of applause and admiration. In the early 70s, she walked onto the set of All in the Family, unaware that the role would make her a household name overnight. Families across the country laughed with her, celebrated her charm, and admired the courage she brought to a character confronting the era's sharpest social tensions. On screen, she radiated warmth, wit, and fearlessness. Off-screen, the reality was far more complicated. Behind the laughter, Sally felt the weight of a show that demanded everything and gave little back. Scripts changed constantly, live audiences waited for perfection, and the character she played began to shape the person she was becoming. Typecast, exhausted, and navigating fame she had only dreamed of, she carried a secret burden few could imagine. Decades later, in a moment that startled fans and reporters alike, Sally Struthers spoke with clarity and honesty. She hated filming All in the Family. What led to this confession? And how did the young actress reconcile a career that brought fame but left her feeling trapped? The story until now has never been fully told. Sally Struthers was born into a world of possibility and quiet expectation, growing up in a family that nurtured her curiosity while instilling a sense of discipline. From an early age, she was drawn to performance, captivated by the power of stories and the way they could move people. Her parents recognized her gift, encouraging her to explore theater, dance, and music, to step onto small stages and practice the art of presence. Every recital, every school play, planted the seeds of a dream that would grow into a career few could have imagined at the time. By her late teens, Sally had begun to navigate the sprawling, competitive landscape of Hollywood. She took small roles in television and film, each one a step toward the spotlight she craved, but had not yet fully reached. Auditions were both exhilarating and punishing, a constant reminder that talent alone did not guarantee success. Yet she persisted, fueled by a combination of youthful optimism and an unwavering belief in her own abilities. She understood that every rejection carried a lesson, every fleeting opportunity could be the key that unlocked the next chapter. Her early experiences shaped more than her technique. They shaped her resilience. She learned to balance ambition with humility, to navigate the delicate politics of casting rooms, and to carry herself with poise even when uncertainty pressed heavily on her shoulders. Hollywood in the late 60s and early 70s was a place of both promise and peril, especially for young women seeking to define themselves outside of conventional expectations. Sally's determination became her anchor, her focus sharpening with each small victory, each step closer to the career she envisioned. Everything changed in 1971. At 20 years old, she walked into an audition that would alter the course of her life. The role of Gloria Stivic on All in the Family called for a young woman both spirited and grounded, witty yet tender. A character whose presence would become central to a series challenging America's cultural norms. When she received the news that she had been cast, the world seemed to shift beneath her feet. Suddenly, the dream she had nurtured for years was no longer abstract. It was a tangible, brilliant, terrifying reality. The first weeks on set were intoxicating. She marveled at the energy of the writers, the precision of the directors, and the dynamic interplay between actors who were already seasoned professionals. Every detail, from the timing of a line to the rhythm of a gesture, mattered. She felt both awe and exhilaration, eager to absorb everything, and yet aware of the responsibility she now bore. She was no longer just Sally Struthers. She was Gloria, the daughter whose spirited voice would challenge and charm a nation. Yet with that exhilaration came the first whispers of the pressure she would carry for years to come. The bright lights and applause hinted at the joy of performing, but she sensed the weight of expectation already pressing down. Fame was a gift, yes, but it was also a mantle, one she would learn to bear with grace and later with a quiet, unspoken fatigue. In those early days, Sally walked a delicate line between the innocence of a young actress discovering her voice and the dawning understanding that the path ahead would be as demanding as it was dazzling. When the cameras rolled on All in the Family, the laughter of the live studio audience filled the room like a tangible force. Every joke, every sharp retort landed with precision, amplified by hundreds of voices reacting in unison. Sally Struthers delivered her lines as Gloria Stivic with energy and charm, her youthful enthusiasm lighting the set. The applause was immediate, gratifying, and in many ways, intoxicating. For the outside world, it seemed effortless, a natural extension of her talent and personality. Yet beneath that radiant exterior, the work carried weight few could perceive. The show's format demanded near perfection. Filmed before a live studio audience, every take was scrutinized, every pause and gesture measured against the rhythm of the room. Scripts were constantly rewritten, sometimes mere hours before shooting, forcing Sally and her co-stars to adapt with almost no time to breathe. The rapid changes required a mental agility that left little room for rest or reflection. One moment she was delivering a comedic line with lightness. The next she was grappling with a sudden shift in dialogue, a subtle turn in character, or a politically charged scene that demanded emotional depth. The role she had dreamed of was exhilarating, yet it carried a quiet heaviness. Gloria Stivic embodied the tensions of the era: gender roles, social change, and the clash of traditional and progressive ideals. To portray her convincingly, Sally had to navigate these conflicts not only on stage but within herself, translating national debates into human emotion. The audience laughed, yes, but the responsibility of embodying a character so tied to public discourse added a strain invisible to the spectators. Every performance required both technical mastery and emotional labor, a duality that rarely left her once the lights dimmed. Typecasting began to assert its presence early. Gloria Stivic was spirited, charming, and endlessly engaging, but she was also young, naive, and defined in ways that limited Sally's professional identity. While the public adored her, casting directors and industry insiders increasingly saw only the role she inhabited. Opportunities for more complex characters were scarce. The image of Gloria began to press upon her, a gentle but persistent reminder that fame carried boundaries, not just recognition. Every applause echoed her success and her confinement simultaneously. Exhaustion became a private companion. The intensity of live performance, the constant pressure of adapting to rewritten scripts, and the emotional weight of politically charged scenes lingered long after each filming day ended. She would leave the studio smiling, meeting fans, and attending industry events, while inside, a quiet fatigue gnawed at her resolve. The laughter she evoked in others contrasted sharply with her own drained energy. Public adoration and private exhaustion existed side by side, a paradox that would define her experience on the show for years. Yet amidst the strain, Sally learned resilience. She discovered the discipline required to maintain focus under pressure, the patience to adapt to sudden changes, and the strength to carry emotional heaviness without faltering on camera. Each scene, each performance, became a lesson in sustaining presence, in managing the tension between expectation and reality. Still, the joy she had anticipated in acting was tempered by the knowledge that her public persona and private experience were not always aligned. By the end of those early years, she understood the paradox of fame. All in the Family had granted her visibility, respect, and influence in American television, yet it had also demanded sacrifices that were invisible to audiences. The applause of a live studio audience could not erase the quiet exhaustion, nor could it fill the spaces left by limited creative freedom. This duality, celebrated on screen, constrained behind it, would follow her through the series and shape the candid reflections she would later share about why, despite its brilliance, she ultimately hated filming All in the Family. As All in the Family settled into its rhythm and became a cultural phenomenon, the public saw Sally Struthers as Gloria Stivic, bright, witty, and unflinchingly spirited. She was the daughter audiences cheered for, the voice of youthful challenge against the outdated views of Archie Bunker. Yet the triumph of recognition came with an undercurrent that was far less visible. Every day on set carried demands that extended beyond memorizing lines or hitting marks. The scripts were heavy with social commentary, navigating themes of racism, sexism, and political debate that required an emotional engagement rarely acknowledged outside the studio. The work was intellectually and emotionally intense, and that intensity traveled home with her, lingering in quiet moments. Sally often felt confined by the role she had helped define. Gloria Stivic, for all her vibrancy, became a lens through which the industry, and sometimes the audience, saw Sally herself. Casting directors, writers, and even well-meaning colleagues spoke to her as though her identity was inseparable from her character. She was recognized as the spirited young woman on screen, but the desire to explore more layered, complex roles was often unmet. This typecasting created an invisible boundary around her creativity, a ceiling that contrasted sharply with the freedom she had envisioned when pursuing acting. The emotional weight of the show was compounded by the rapid pace of production. With live audiences and tight filming schedules, there was little time to process or decompress. Scenes that addressed pressing social issues demanded precise delivery, while maintaining the comedic timing that made the show successful. Each joke had to land, each reaction calibrated, yet behind every laugh was the labor of carrying the story's gravitas. The combination of public expectation and the moral responsibility embedded in the scripts created a tension that Sally experienced deeply, often in solitude. Behind the laughter there were moments of quiet fatigue that no applause could touch. The show's brilliance required her constant attention, her mental agility, and her emotional presence. Days that ended with a curtain of laughter in the studio left her with a lingering sense of exhaustion. The duality of being celebrated on screen while feeling constrained off it shaped her relationship with her work. It was not a question of dislike for her craft, but rather a recognition that the role demanded more than she had anticipated, in ways that affected her personally and professionally. Despite these challenges, Sally maintained a commitment to her role and to the integrity of the show. She absorbed feedback, adapted to last-minute script changes, and navigated the expectations of directors, producers, and audiences alike. Yet the cumulative effect of typecasting, emotional heaviness, and constant scrutiny created a quiet strain. It was an experience that shaped her understanding of fame and performance, teaching lessons about resilience, endurance, and the subtle ways professional success can mask personal struggle. By the midpoint of the series, the contrast between public perception and private experience was undeniable. Audiences admired Gloria Stivic for her courage and charm. Sally Struthers carried the weight of a different reality, a professional triumph intertwined with emotional exhaustion and constrained creative freedom. These were the truths she would later recount candidly, explaining why, for all its accolades and cultural significance, filming All in the Family was not the joyous journey the outside world assumed. Decades after All in the Family first aired, Sally Struthers finally gave voice to a truth she had carried quietly for more than 50 years. She revealed with calm clarity that she had hated filming the show. It was not a confession born of anger or a desire to rewrite history. It was the release of a weight she had borne in silence, a recognition of the gap between public perception and her lived experience. For fans, the revelation was startling. For Sally, it was a long-awaited acknowledgement of her own reality. The confession reflected the cumulative strain she had endured. The demands of performing before a live studio audience, the constant rewriting of scripts, and the pressure of portraying Gloria within the era's political and social conflicts had left an indelible mark. Each day on set required technical precision and emotional engagement, a balancing act between comedic timing and the weight of serious themes. The applause of hundreds of viewers could not diminish the exhaustion that lingered long after the cameras stopped rolling. Sally had long been careful with her words. Interviews and appearances had always been measured. polite, and respectful. The show was a landmark in American television, and its creator Norman Lear was revered. Criticism could feel like sacrilege, and the culture of the 70s did not encourage young actresses to speak candidly about dissatisfaction. Gratitude and professionalism were expected, and emotional vulnerability was considered risky. Speaking openly about struggle could jeopardize future opportunities and invite public misunderstanding. She had navigated these waters with care, masking her fatigue behind charm and poise. The statement that she hated filming was not a rejection of the work itself or of her colleagues. Rather, it was an acknowledgement of the realities behind the scenes. She had felt typecast, restricted by the character that defined her public image. She had carried the emotional weight of scripts addressing race, gender, and politics, translating complex social issues into performance, while simultaneously managing the expectations of the audience. She had invested herself fully, yet the personal toll was significant. This was the dimension she had rarely shared, the dimension that separated her private experience from the adoration of viewers. In speaking out, Sally also offered insight into the broader pressures of the industry at the time. The culture surrounding television production in the 70s was unforgiving. Young actors were expected to comply, to perform without complaint, and to prioritize the show above personal well-being. Creative agency was limited, and speaking up was dangerous. Her revelation highlighted the silent labor performed by performers behind the curtain, the emotional labor that rarely registers in public memory. Her words illuminated a tension between achievement and personal cost, a duality that was invisible to viewers but central to her experience. Finally, the admission was a reclaiming of voice. By acknowledging her true feelings, Sally separated her personal narrative from the mythos of the show. She honored the cultural significance of All in the Family, while asserting her own humanity. The laughter, the accolades, the fame, these were external markers of success. Her confession reminded audiences that success does not erase exhaustion, and admiration does not negate personal struggle. For Sally, speaking the truth was an act of integrity, a recognition of both her contribution and the realities of her journey. Sally Struthers' journey did not end with the final episode of All in the Family. In many ways, that show became the defining moment of her career, but it was also the starting point for a life shaped by both recognition and personal insight. The lessons she learned on set, the demands of live performance, the weight of cultural responsibility, and the emotional strain of typecasting remained with her, informing the choices she made in the decades that followed. She carried the experience with quiet dignity, aware that her story was more complex than the public perception allowed. Even as she embraced new roles in film, television, and advocacy work, the shadow of Gloria Stivic lingered. Casting directors often saw her through the lens of that early success, seeking the spirited, youthful energy that had captivated audiences in the 70s. Yet Sally approached each opportunity with discernment, choosing projects that allowed her to expand her craft while honoring the experiences she had accumulated. The work was now guided by her voice, her agency, and her understanding of the importance of personal fulfillment alongside professional achievement. Her reflection on All in the Family became a touchstone for honesty in Hollywood. By admitting decades later that she had hated filming the series, she challenged the notion that professional success and personal satisfaction are inherently aligned. She highlighted the silent labor that performers often undertake, the emotional, intellectual, and physical demands that remain unseen by audiences. Her candor offered a nuanced view of fame. It can illuminate, but it can also constrain. It can celebrate, but it can exhaust. Her revelation was both a personal release and a contribution to a broader understanding of the industry's inner workings. Sally's legacy extends beyond the cultural impact of her early roles. She became an advocate for meaningful work, for creative agency, and for the acknowledgement of the human experience behind performance. Her story illustrates that enduring success does not erase struggle, nor does acclaim invalidate personal challenges. she maintained a balance between pride in her achievements and acknowledgement of the costs, modeling a form of resilience that is both instructive and inspiring. The emotional truths she revealed resonate because they are deeply human. Audiences often remember Gloria's sharp wit and spirited courage at the dinner table, but Sally invites a reflection on the hidden labor behind the laughter. Her career embodies the tension between public adoration and private experience, the contrast between the persona seen by millions and the person navigating fatigue, typecasting, and emotional demands. By sharing her truth, she bridged the gap between performance and reality, allowing viewers to appreciate both the brilliance of the show and the reality of the performer behind it. Ultimately, Sally Struthers' journey is a testament to endurance, honesty, and self-awareness. She rose to fame in a transformative era of television, carried the pressures of a groundbreaking show, and emerged with the courage to speak her truth. Her story illuminates the cost of cultural milestones, the perseverance required to sustain a career, and the grace with which a performer can navigate both acclaim and struggle. It reminds us that legacy is not only measured in applause, but in the authenticity and integrity with which one approaches life and work. Sally's candid reflections enrich the history of television, while honoring the lived experience of the artist behind the character. Sally Struthers' story reminds us that behind the laughter and cultural impact of All in the Family was a young woman navigating the demands of fame, the weight of social responsibility, and the pressures of a role that defined her public identity. She carried typecasting, emotional exhaustion, and the heavy burden of expectation with resilience. Yet she also preserved her integrity, her voice, and her dignity. Decades later, by finally admitting that she had hated filming the show, she reclaimed her narrative, offering a candid glimpse into the unseen labor that shaped her life and career. Her revelation does not diminish the brilliance of the show or the joy it brought audiences. Instead, it adds depth to the story, highlighting the human experience behind the cultural milestone. Sally's journey is one of endurance, honesty, and reflection, a testament to the courage it takes to honor both success and struggle. She shows that authenticity and self-awareness are as vital to a legacy as applause and accolades. For more emotional stories, check out this video.